All right, we are back and we are winners again for the sixth straight time after going up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and kicking some butt, beating up on the opponent that we beat in the 2016-17 Horizon League tournament championship to get us to the NCAA tournament. It always feels good to beat Milwaukee because it reminds me of when that happened. It's the greatest moment of my life. But how you guys feeling? Feeling pretty good?
Feeling excellent. To echo what you led off with, Kyle, I'd say, nothing's better than 6 straight wins. I think a lot of us were hoping that was going to be the case entering into the weekend, and we were very happy at the outcome. I think Friday night's game was hands down probably the best all-around game that I think we've played to date, and we followed it up with another great game on Saturday. So I'm ecstatic. I'm looking forward to another weekend coming up here against Green Bay, but you can never complain about a 6-game win streak.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put, Larry, I'm going to ask you how you're feeling because Mike just brought up a point. I want to put you on the spot real quick. Mike just said that Friday night, we might have some infighting here. Mike just said that Friday night was the greatest game we played all season, and we shot 37 threes. How do you feel about that, Larry?
Not good, Kyle. I mean, keep in mind, yeah, we won and we had a good margin of victory Friday, but we put up 16 less threes the next day and beat them by the same margin. So,
yeah, I guess
you know where I am. You know where I am. I like the ball down low. I want to beat the ball down low, and I want to beat the opponent into the ground. Threes are fun, but smashing the ball into the hole to me is a lot more exciting. So.
Oh no, I hear you. And when I was in stats back in the day, that we used to look at information multiple ways. You take a data set and you always, try to figure out what does it mean. And so one of the ways you kind of cipher or sift through data is you pull out the anomalies, right? So like the highest number and the lowest number, you just pull them out. And so when we get to the end of the year, that's 18 made threes in a game. That is amazing, and I'm really glad I watched it. But at the same time, I get where you guys are coming from. You're 100% right. The stats bear it out that when we pound it inside, it's like, we're more successful that way. And but personally, it was just, for me, it was fun to watch. I mean, I'm sitting here like tallying them up. Are we gonna break the record? We're gonna break the record. And if we didn't, we had like, I don't know if you remember, but we hit like number 16 with like 5 or 6 minutes left in the game or something like that. And I felt like we missed like 3 or 4 straight. And I was like, oh, that probably did it for us. We ended up hitting like 2 or 3 more, but
in the last 2 or 3 minutes, I felt like we were softening up to begin with. I feel like we were just kind of going into cruise control, throwing the ball around a little bit, trying to drain the clock, take the air out of the ball a little bit. A missed 3 on our part is another chance for them to get easy, fast break points. So I kind of feel like even though the record was in the back of the coaches and players' heads, I think it was very secondary to the fact that they kind of knew late in the game they were about to win their second game in a row by 10 points or more, and that's a comfortable win, something we have not seen a lot of. I mean, and I'll go into this later when we get into it, but just looking at the 6-game win streak and then the 4-game losing streak that preceded it, we'll talk about the margins of victory and the margins of loss in all those games. And we needed to win a series by double digits. We really, really needed the series. And it was just a great series to be a fan of.
Yeah, for sure. And all the made threes kind of actually led into some controversy, if you could believe it or not. We had alluded to it a little bit on, someone had commented this on the Norse page, when there was a little bit of a kerfuffle, as they say, on Saturday. And someone had commented on the Norse page that it had been in relation to the Milwaukee coaches or players, or somebody had been like talking smack and saying something about shooting threes too much or ain't going to happen again or whatever. And they thought that maybe is what led to some of that. I can't remember who said it, if it was one of you two or if it was even someone else. Do you remember?
I think, Kyle, I think it was actually, ironically enough, I think Coach Horn commented on the coaches show tonight. It was one of the Milwaukee assistants.
Well, that's what I was going to say, but Mike, someone called it out on the night it happened, though.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
I remember seeing it in the chat, like on the game chat or whatever.
Okay.
And I was like, I haven't heard anything, but we'll see.
Right.
And then to your point, go ahead and finish what you were saying.
No,
Sorry.
yeah, I think what had happened was one of the assistant coaches during a timeout or a dead ball had made a comment to Trayvon. Are you going to be either the Smash Brothers tonight, or are you going to go back to shooting the way that you're normally capable of shooting? And I think Horn made the comment that from that point forward, Trayvon took it personally. And we saw it in his stat line, obviously, the way that he played Saturday night. I think he did take it to heart. And, again, I echo what Coach Horn said tonight. I think if you're an assistant basketball coach of any Division I or even Division II or Division III basketball program, for you to be talking smack with a player on the court, you've got other issues to maybe get in tune with. But for our sake, I think it boded well. It definitely triggered something with Trayvon to where he took it personally, as well as some of the other players. And I think if you were to ask that assistant coach right now if he regrets saying it, I bet you he probably said he would.
Yeah, I agree. Trust me, if we burned everyone at the stake for every bad thing they've said to somebody or whatever, I'd be dead a long time ago. But so like, I'm not going to, comment on the guy's like personal, issues or whatever, like why he did it. He probably just got caught up in the moment or whatever. But I mean, don't wake the beast, Trayvon Faulkner might have looked down that night. He had 8 points, seven assists though, season high, I think. And everyone else around them scoring a bunch of points. They got 21 out of Warwick, 19 out of Langdon, 17 out of Alita, even 10 out of Nelson. You know that Faulkner's the last person, after being the only person in the starting lineup not to score double digits. That's the last person you want to make that comment to. But I think he found that out.
Yeah, when you can beat a team by that margin, that convincingly on their home court, and your arguably best player has an off night, what's that say about your team? They just got to be careful who they're talking to and what they're saying, because I think everything backfired miserably for Milwaukee.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And even on that Friday night, you're talking about Trayvon Faulkner being the only guy not scoring in double figures.
Right.
He still had he had 7 rebounds. We talked about a little bit, but he had 4 offensive rebounds too. I mean, Trayvon, like, even when he's off, he's on. It seems since it predates the winning streak, but really since that Cleveland State series, where I think his frustration really boiled over, and he got that technical where he was yelling. He was chirping at the bench, which a little bit more, it's understandable when it's a 20-something-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid. I think we're going to grant him a little bit more leeway, but his frustration really boiled over then. And then really ever since then, I mean, it's been a whole new Trayvon, really, or maybe the same Trayvon, but just playing at a more efficient level. I don't know.
Well, I think maybe to your point, Kyle, I think maybe what Trayvon has realized, and maybe even the coaching staff, is the play of the others on the team have maybe allowed Trayvon to play more within himself and not feel that he has to be the main scorer or go-to person, and that if someone else is possibly feeling it that night, that he can do some of the other small things to still help the team, get the overall win. And I think you saw that Friday night, with only scoring the 8 points, but 7 big assists, the rebounding as well. Those things obviously contributed to the overall win. And I think he is seeing that now, to where I think early on he was feeling that he had to shoulder the brunt of maybe the scoring, everything needed to go through him. And I think now that he's kind of starting to play more within himself and really taking the game as it comes to him, he's definitely faring much better. And it's exciting to watch. I'm definitely glad we've got him on our team, and excited to see what he's going to do here to end out the season and going into the tournament.
Yeah, and I got to say, the last thing I'll say on Trayvon is, I mean, I said it on the last episode, and I even made a little compilation video about it and posted it on Twitter. The kid is, he's really stepped into his own on as far as scoring goes. He is, you get him in an isolated situation off one of those, Iverson screens that the team likes to run, where you kind of get him an ISO versus his guy off to his own. I mean, you see teams now are starting to run double teams at him because he's so lethal out there. So I'm really excited to see Trayvon do so well. And he's doing, like, to your point, Mike, he's doing so well because he's got such a good supporting cast. Larry, I know you have been all over this guy for his whole career. Tell us what you saw out of one of the supporting cast members, Adrian Nelson, this weekend.
I can't be pleased enough with the way Adrian has continued to develop. I mean, just looking at statistics, looking at his on-court performance, what he does personally and for the team is absolutely undeniable. In conjunction with what he's already doing himself, when you add in a player like Noah Hoopman, who's now getting about 13 minutes a game, you put those two guys on the court at the same time, and all of a sudden you've got a defense or a zone or man-to-man, whatever, having to account for Adrian, who is an absolute brick wall to move. I mean, his ability to pull down offensive rebounds is becoming legendary. But the fact that you have got to put a player or two on Hoopman when he's in there, I think AD, he's going to start seeing more opportunity for production as we continue to commit to taking the ball down low and putting more big players on the court at once. He's going to get more and more opportunities. And I'll tell you what I really enjoyed seeing. We were talking earlier about how he just went on a tear of hitting 20 of 21 shots over the course of, I believe it was 5 games. The one shot he missed, I believe, was about, I want to say 10 to 12 feet out, but it was a good looking shot. It was a shot that he should have taken. I'm really pleased that I feel he's getting more comfortable in his role. I think he's starting to accept the fact that he's allowed to do more than just rebound and put a ball back up in the hoop. I see him moving around a little bit more and contributing in ways that I think he might have been hesitant at some point in his career. We talk about this all the time, and Kyle, you have to remind me of this all the time because I don't really think about these things, but Adrian was not a Horn recruit. He was a Brennan recruit. So we're in a position right now to where we have to wonder, was Adrian recruited to be the wing, the explosive wing that he was in high school? Go back and watch video of him in high school. He could shoot. He could shoot. He could run a fast break. He could lead a fast break. But he got kind of, I think, pushed into a role as a big man, going to a school that didn't traditionally have a lot of big men, just, active power forwards or whatever you want to call them. So seeing him, to kind of answer your question a little more, seeing him develop into what I think Horn wants him to feel comfortable becoming is going to be key to the Norse down the road this year and into the next year or two, or however long he has left with us based on this year's freebie, whatever. I'm really interested to see in what direction he develops. But yeah, he was a big factor this past weekend.
Yeah, Mike, you got anything to add to that?
Really not a lot more to add. I think we saw a really fascinating side of AD this past weekend. Just his sheer hustle, from foul line to foul line, whether he was ingrained into the offensive set or not. It's just so many times where you felt that, he didn't have a chance at a rebound, that he was able to somehow weasel his way in and grab them. And I'll be honest, I think there were probably 4 or 5 that I do recall that just because of the way the ball ricocheted off the backboard or whatever, just came to him so quick he couldn't, pull it in. And again, those could have been added ones. But, Saturday night, 14 rebounds. He had 9 rebounds the night before, 23 rebounds over the 2-game series. I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's hard work and outworking, your defender. And, to Larry's point, I just continue to be amazed at what we see from him and just continue to look for even bigger and better things from him down the line.
Yeah, and then real quick to Larry's point on the production, I actually went back and did even more math, Larry. He was 90, or he's in his last 10 games, he was 41 of 45 from the field for 91%. So
okay. Yeah.
It's insane. He's on a freaking tear. So, Mike, I was going to put you on the spot and have you talk a little bit about Olita specifically, but I think he plays in a position group that I think goes unnoticed a lot. We always talk about the guards for the Norse. I mean, we're a guard heavy team. We always have been, or at least for the last few years. We always talk about the big guys too, Drew and Jalen Billups before Drew, and now it's everyone loves Adrian Nelson, but like we don't really ever talk about the wings. And so I'm kind of interested to hear what you saw this weekend out of them. We got guys like Olita, Robinson, Joko even kind of falls into the wing category, even though he plays more at the top of the matchup. What did you see out of that group this weekend, and does it make you feel good about like competing with some of the teams that we have coming up down the stretch?
Well, as far as the lead is concerned, I think Friday night I was ecstatic by the output that we were able to get from him. 17, all his points, more or less from behind the arc, and unfortunately, had a struggle with it the following night. In terms, I think he only finished with maybe 4 total points or maybe 3 total points on Saturday night. But if there was ever a need for consistency from him, I think if we could even get what we saw Friday night and even half of that, in the rubber game, I would gladly take it because I think as we move into the last couple games and into the postseason, we're definitely going to need, as much shooting as we can possibly find. I was pleasantly surprised on Saturday night with Trey Robinson. He came in and for a stretch there, put up some really decent output. I mean, he finished the night with 14 on Saturday and hit some. I think there were a couple clutch shots that he ended up hitting to kind of keep our lead. I think there was a little bit of a run from Milwaukee there, and Trey made a couple big baskets. But again, I think we saw a little more confidence from him, more so that we've seen over the last couple weeks or couple games. And so I was pleasantly surprised with what we saw from him. A head scratcher that I had, and I think the 3 of us had talked about it in game, it was for what he was able to do and for the numbers he was able to put up on Saturday night. He seemed to disappear maybe the last 4 or 5 minutes and didn't really play anymore. And I was kind of questioning maybe the lineup that we had on the floor at that time, and wondering why he wasn't I guess maybe being rewarded for what he was able to do to that point. But and then lastly, I think Warwick on Friday night, 4 points at halftime and then finishing with a game high 21. I mean, I think we would all be lying if we say we saw that coming. We knew that he wouldn't stay at 4 points, but for him to end up being team high 21 points, I thought was just telling in itself. And then for him to follow it up the next night with 16 more, and then as a result, winning the freshman of the week award again. So I was happy with what we saw out of our wing play this weekend. Um, Again, it's just something that we're going to have to make sure we carry over to another two tough games this weekend with Green Bay, and then obviously to end the regular season against Wright State. We're going to need all hands on deck, wings included.
Can I just throw a thought in real quick?
No, go for it. Yeah.
I have a thought. So Elite is an interesting player to me because he's so unidimensional. I think he's taken one or two shots the entire season that was not from behind the arc. I started doing a little digging today just to kind of get a feel, because I've not been his biggest supporter, I think, in the last 2 years. I think as highly rated as a JUCO player as he was last year, I was expecting production by the bunches and not just very sporadic arrivals of play. Here's just a little something to think about, which I think is really cool. On the 4-game losing streak that preceded the 6-game win streak, he played 3 minutes total through the balance of those 4 games. I know there were multiple reasons. I know, injuries, COVID-related things, things that might have impacted why he wasn't seeing the court. And his production obviously was minimal to nil. On this 6-game win streak, Alita is averaging 23 minutes a game. That's almost starter minute. That's close to starter minutes, right? In that time, he's hit 42% of his shots from 3. Granted, those are his only shots for the most part. He's shooting 42% from 3 during the 6-game win streak, in which he's playing 23 minutes a game. Yep. I've not always been his biggest supporter, but I have to say there's a lot of value in that. When you got somebody that dangerous behind the arc that's hitting shots in addition to all the other weapons we have, you got to really wonder if Alita being back, whether it be healthy or more prepared or ready to play defense or whatever the case is, you got to wonder if having an Alita that's starting to hit some semblance of a stride late in the season is going to be a pretty significant factor in the next 4 conference games and then going into the Horizon League tournament.
Yeah. So it's funny, Larry, you mentioned the stretch he's on right now of minutes. First of all, 23 minutes per game. It doesn't, I know that doesn't break the 24 or the 26-minute starter threshold or whatever, but honestly, for NKU, 23 minutes is starter minutes in that 5th spot, because as we know that NKU has about 3 or 4 guys that average around, or about 4 guys that average over 28 minutes a game, closer to 30 or so. And then that 5th spot is David Bam will get 23 minutes. Alito will get 23 minutes. You know what I mean? It seems like they're using that 5th spot as more of a rotational spot. It's like an extension of their bench, basically. Right. First of all. Second of all, what Alita's doing this year, it kind of feels like he's doing this year what he was supposed to have done last year.
Right.
The coaches, they weren't shy about it. They gave him a ton of leeway on shooting the ball. They were yelling at him from the bench to shoot the ball when I went to the Miami game and covered it. Every time he caught it, shoot. And so they wanted what we're seeing now. They wanted this last year. They didn't get it last year, and they benched him, and he didn't play. And other guys did, including Joko, and guys like that. And I think this year they're seeing out of their senior what they were hoping to have seen last year. So, but Mike, you touched on Marquez Warwick, and I think I remember in our little 3-way chat we have, someone mentioned, one of you two mentioned, oh no, Marquez only has 4 points. Oh my gosh, whatever. And I mean, look, I wouldn't have bet that he was going to come out and score 21 total and lead the team, but I've never had more faith in a freshman ever, for NKU, period. And I remember putting in there, he's going to, I can't remember if it was our if it was our group chat or if it was on the page itself, but I said somewhere he'll be fine. Like he's gonna get his. Like this is the kind of game where like they don't have someone who's gonna shut Marquez Warwick down. And if you notice, like nobody was shutting him down. He was kind of hurting himself with just missed shots and stuff like that. He just wasn't really feeling it. But I mean, there was really nothing nothing that he was doing was showing me like, oh, this is like something that they're doing to him. They're game planning for him. It was like he was just beating himself. And I knew that I could tell from how this kid is, like that's not going to keep up for a full game with him. Mm-hmm. So again, can't say enough good things about him. I do also though want to throw some love. I mean, here's someone else who I didn't know what to expect out of him coming into the season. But I continue to be impressed. I mean, his Saturday night game wasn't the greatest, but he continues overall to kind of be our floor general and be a really strong player for this team. And that's Bryson Langdon. You know, he played over 30 minutes a game, both games. He shot really well from the field the first night. Everyone did, obviously, but had 19 points, 4 assists, even got up there with 3 steals. The next game, he shot a little less well from 3, but he did have 5 assists and only 1 turnover. You'll love to see that. So, you know, again, Bryson Langdon, I mean, these are numbers that like aren't blowing anyone away, but I think you got to consider the fact that like this guy was our 6th player last year for the most. I mean, I know he started most games, but he was probably our 6th best player. And he's 5'9", and he just, to me, plays so well within the confines of this offense. And something I'm starting to notice a little bit of, and I don't know if it's been pervasive all season or if it's just a recent development, but him and Adrian Nelson are great off the pick and roll. Mm-hmm. Like they have a really good rapport together. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have noticed that specifically, but if you haven't, look for it the next few games, because like we all know that the Norse love to get Warwick and Trayvon off in isolation and maybe get some off ball movement on the other side of the court with those 2 guys in isolation. But another action they really love is out of that kind of like dribble drive offense. They love getting Langdon and Nelson in pick and roll situations, because Langdon's so good on those pull up jumpers, and Nelson obviously is great at rolling to the basket and dunking it. So I found that really interesting.
They make a really nice combination. It's kind of like salt and pepper out there. They're completely different players, but they complement each other so well, you know?
Yeah. Little bro, big bro, Kobe Shat.
Right. Yeah. And Langdon, I mean, I don't know why, but because he was a last second pickup before last season, it was kind of like he was very lightly recruited. I've always been a fan of his. He's just a fearless, you know, he's not a big guy, but he's also, if you look at him, he's not a tiny dude. I mean, he's got something on his frame to carry him into the paint. And a lot of that might just be a chip on his shoulder too that he's carrying with him.
I think it's Chicago. Yeah, that's what it is, man. He's Chicago. He's Chicago tough, dude.
Right. I mean, this this last weekend, I mean, he had 9 assists for 2 turnovers. I mean, you can't. That's not realistic. That's not a realistic, sustainable thing. I mean, that's not normal. to help your team that much and hurt your team that little is a lot to ask for anybody who handles the ball more than any other guy on the court. And the way he came into this program and just snapped right into it and took over a role that I'm not sure they planned on him taking over right away. I couldn't possibly be happier with them picking Bryson up when they did.
Yeah. And Larry, by the way, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, guys, if you recall, I think in one of our chats, I had made mention to both of you that I think what we're seeing, the Bryson Langdon that we're seeing these last 4 games, is a result of something that Coach Hornet touched on last week's coach's show, where he had stated, Jim Kelch had questioned him on, what are you seeing from Bryson or what's going on with Bryson? And Coach Horn point blank said, hey, he wasn't getting it done in practice. And I think it was maybe the practice right before or 2 days before the UIC series started, he kicked him out of practice halfway through. He told him to hit the locker rooms, and he says, "I don't want to see you, get out of here."
Didn't start him. Didn't start him that night either.
And basic, right. And I think that was the kick in the pants that has resulted in what we've seen these last 4 games from him. To both of your points, we've seen a completely different player, someone that is running the team as well or maybe better than he has all season, and just doing what's needed to either get the ball to the right people, or when he's called upon to be a scorer like he was on Friday night, he's doing it. And Kyle, I agree wholeheartedly with you. I am just ecstatic in what he's done these last 4 games, and you can see the confidence in how he's playing. He's playing with a chip on his shoulder, like you said. He's in there, he's scruffing. I think we can all recall, I think it was the Friday night game late where he took a shot to the chops and elbow or something from one of the guards from Milwaukee and busted his lip wide open. And then Saturday night was playing with that big old hunk of gauze on there. Yep. And then got popped again where that thing came off, and they had to go back and reattach it. So no, I've been pleasantly surprised, and maybe we can all thank Coach Horn for getting upset enough to kick him out of practice. But on the flip side, for Bryson to take it upon himself to say, you know what, I'm taking that as a challenge, and I'm going to go out and show Coach and everybody else what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, I agree. One other last thing on Bryson Langdon, Larry, I just want to circle back on your point you made. So Bryson Langdon, as I have mentioned probably every time he comes up in conversation, led the league last year in assist to turnover ratio. That's a huge stat to determine kind of like, I mean, obviously it's an efficiency stat, right? So you got to think if your assists, if you look at just who's averaging the most assists, well, that can be inflated by who's playing the most minutes, stuff like that. If you look at the turnovers, same thing. So you look at assist to turnover ratio, it kind of supposed to balance each other out. So like if you play more minutes, you probably turn the ball over more. If you play more minutes, you probably assist more if you're a good point guard. So Bryson Langdon last year led the league in assist to turnover ratio at 1.8, at 1.8 assists for every 1 turnover. Okay. Doesn't sound great, but still pretty good. This year he's 10th in the league, right? At 1.6. So he's not far off from last year's mark. He's really come, and I think part of it is he's improved a lot in the last few games. Like you said, he went 9 assists, 2 turnovers this week, and that really probably helped him a lot. He's at 67 total assists on the season, only 43 turnovers. So definitely want to see him clean that up a little bit. He's, I will say, nowhere near the top this year. 1.6 ain't going to get it done this year. The top's 4.7, but he is in the top 10 again. So
I think with him taking as much initiative with the ball as a scoring threat, I think that's going to dig into his assists a little bit, and he's going to be more likely to give up the ball on some of these drives and traffic and things like that. So
he's not kicking to Tyler Sharp and Dantez Walton anymore either.
Right,
so
right. I'm willing to forgive that if he's contributing in other ways.
Yep, no doubt. All right, I want to hit you guys with a fun stat, okay? I know you guys don't subscribe too much to like the advanced analytics and stuff like that, but I think this is a really fun one. So, of all the players in the Horizon League that are used at least 24% of the possessions or more, okay? So they're in 24% of their team's possessions or more, they are on the court being used. David Bam is statistically the 14th most efficient player in the league when being used in 24% or more of the possessions. So I think that's really awesome. And it doesn't surprise me because like, while he might take a few bad shots here or there, in my opinion, I think I said it again in the chat, and I eventually am going to have to talk crap about myself about how something dumb I say, because I keep patting myself on the back tonight. But I said this in our team chat, that I definitely said it in our chat, because I wouldn't say this on the comment, even though I'm about to say it on a recording. David Bam, I think, is the most polished big freshman I've seen. I mean, even more so than Drew was his freshman year. Drew had some moves his freshman year, but we didn't really see his major growth and development till, I mean, for me, it was a huge leap between freshman and sophomore year. David Bam, that guy has an arsenal of moves. And I know Larry's brought this up a lot, so I'm gonna kick it to you, Larry, to go into more detail if you have any on it, or any more thoughts in general. But I'll leave it with my thing on David Bam is that guy can score 6 ways to Sunday from inside the three. And don't get me wrong, he's an effective 3-point shooter, but I would love to see, and you're gonna have to write this down coming from me, I'd love to see him not shoot as many threes and get himself in the Dirk Nowitzki range, that 15, 18 feet and in, back to the basket and make something happen in an isolated situation.
Yeah.
What do you think, Larry?
I really, really enjoy Bam. I mean, he's getting about 18 minutes a game, which is significant for a freshman, right? Especially somebody that kind of got brought in toward the end of the recruiting period. What I enjoy about him the most, though, is what makes a great player doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best at one thing. When you look at the best players of all time, you look at players that might not have been the best at one thing, but they were solid at many things. You look at your Jordans, you look at your LeBrons, you look at your Larry Birds, your Kobe's, they weren't known for just one singular thing. They were known for being solid at several things. You look at a player like David Bam, like you said, he can score anywhere on the court. His shooting range is borderline unlimited. Now, granted, he's only shooting 28% from three on the season, but I think we can all agree he's taken some ill-advised 3-point shots, that a freshman would take. But seeing
freshman 3-point percentages usually are just a little bit lower, right, due to the transition. It's 3 feet deeper than you were in high school. Yeah, exactly. Right. So go ahead though. Sorry.
But also, that's okay. Something also to take into account, the range that he has within the paint, within, from the perimeter and down to the baseline is insane. Like you mentioned, Drew is a great example. I don't know many players, and just in me, being a fan of college basketball, I can't think of a ton of college basketball players that were significantly better than Drew at backing in to the basket and then finding a way to turn and get the ball in the hoop. It wasn't always pretty, but it was supremely effective. And Drew was amazing at that. He could also pop a three. Yeah. But the way that David Bam gets to the basket and scores, or at least is a potential scoring threat, is crazy. He has so many different moves to the left, to the right, a right hook, a left hook, backing in, driving straight into the left, driving straight into the right. And then we've seen some crazy things where, Kyle, you've talked about how he has some almost very, I think you've called it very goofy white guy footwork, where he'll kind of lumber to the left, lumber to the right, step back, shoot.
No, I'm serious. For my whole life grew up in Dallas, right? Biggest Mavs fan you'll ever see. I have a hat in my closet right now that has Dirk. It says Dirk, and the eye is him doing his fadeaway kickback. Yeah. And that's David Bam. Like, granted, right. I say this all the time. I want to scale it way down. David Bam is not Dirk Nowitzki. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he's greatest European of all time. But he's got a lot of, like, to me, it's like, as a Mavs fan, I was always told that Dirk had an impact overseas, and like his game was like a paintbrush that just brushed over European big men. And like a lot of them style their game after Dirk. And like, I see that. Like, I would love to actually ask Bam if he grew up watching Dirk, or like right. what NBA players influenced his game. Cause I guarantee if I said, well, what about Dirk? Even if he didn't say him at first, he'd be like, oh, of course. Yeah, of course. Because you can see it in his game. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to co-opt your thing.
No, that's good. That's good. And I think that everything you're saying is kind of supports the thought that I'm having. And that's that his game is a lot more polished than what we're seeing on the surface. It's hard to see a ton of production and a ton of what's the word I'm looking for? Development in 18 minutes a game. But in those 18 minutes, he's averaging, 8 to 9 points a game, I think, somewhere, or 7 to 8 points a game, 2 to 3 rebounds a game. He's third on the team in blocks. I think Horn's doing a good job in bringing him in slowly instead of just kind of throwing him under the train. He's giving him a chance to show what he can do. and let him earn his minutes, because I'm sure there's a lot of, coming from Europe, there's probably some little stumbling blocks here and there he might have had to run through in the process of picking up a whole new style of offense and defense and expectations. But I think he brings a really interesting game to the Norse, and the fact that we've got that for 3 or 4 more years and see it develop the way we saw Drew develop is really fascinating to me. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
This is the last thing I'll say, Larry, and I'll leave it at this. Is what I always get so excited about players, especially guys who don't play a lot of minutes like Bam. Like, you can get a good sample size off Bryson Langdon because he's playing 31 minutes a game. Trayvon Faulkner playing 34 a game. Marquez Works playing 35. David Bam's only playing 18, so it's really hard to know, like, well, what is this guy really? So if you go look at his per 40-minute stats, basically it's everything broadened out as if he was playing 40 minutes. He's at 16.8 points per game. You know, almost 5.5 rebounds a game. He probably could pick up the assist numbers a little bit, but like, I love seeing that. And I mean, obviously he's not going to ever play 40 minutes in a game. I mean, hopefully anyway, but like, it's just, when you look at that kind of stuff, it's like, man, we got something with this kid. And it sucks because he was kind of a late addition a little bit to the recruiting class. And I wasn't expecting this. I know that when I talked to the people I talked to, they told me that they were very excited about him. When I was asking about the big men, I did not even think to add in Bam because I didn't think he was going to be one off what I saw. But he's really, I would say I'm probably the most excited about him out of any of the other freshmen, as crazy as it sounds, just because I kind of expected what I'm seeing out of Marquez Warwick. And I was not expecting this out of Bam. So I'm very excited. And I think that he's got the kind of game that when you talk about technical skill set, that can be developed so much better than just pure athleticism. Like, Marquez Warwick is not going to add 10 inches to his vertical at NKU, but David Bam can add a lot of post moves. And he's already shown at 18 years old that he can get there. And he can do what he can do right now. I mean, it's amazing to think what he's going to be able to do if we can start Drew McDonalding him and running the offense through him on the block at some point in his career. I mean, I'm very excited to see what we got or what we're going to get out of him. Mike, I know we just ranted. You got anything to
No,
add?
you're fine. He's in a unique position, guys, where, and I think I mentioned this maybe our first or second show early on when we were talking about him then, but he's in a unique position now because 9 times out of 10, the guy that is guarding him, he has maybe 3-4 inches on that guy. And for him to be able to, I would love to see him take that game inside where he can post a guy up and do an up and under move on him or a nice deep post on the block, to catch deep and a nice, turnaround jumper, and lull those types of defenders in, and then occasionally go out behind the arc and pop a three and not just be so reliant on the three. But I think a lot of that is, due to his youth. I'm sure coming from high school, he kind of maybe had free reign to pull up and pop from whenever, or wherever, whenever. And, again, I think he should or needs to take more advantage of those mismatches that he gets when those guys that are much shorter than him, where he can post them up inside and get a quick 6, 7, 8 points. But I agree with you both. I'm really excited. I think with some work in the weight room to get him a little more stronger, and then just working on the footwork and just the other different variables. He has the potential to be one of the greats at NKU as well, with how he's able to score so quickly.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think it's kind of funny. We spent the last 2 shows pretty much talking about players and hyping them up. And, we probably should at some point get into the style of play and all this kind of, but I can't help it, man. I'm a players guy. I've always been a players guy. I love talking about what I'm seeing from an individual standpoint. I mean, granted, like, obviously I want to see them play well together, but I think that's part of why it's so easy to talk about each of them individually right now, is because they're all playing so well together. That said, we're going to end it on, or at least this is the last one I want to ask about. Then I'll see if you guys have any last comments or want to ask me anything or whatever. Noah Hoopman. So I was recording with Jim Sarro from Fear the Phoenix. They have a website similar to Norse Report, fearthephoenix.com. And I was just asking him sort of about our team, and we were just kind of shooting the crap and talking about size and big men, stuff like that. And I mentioned, I had to preface it. I was like, "Hey, we got a 7-footer. I think he could be something. He's a walk on, but don't laugh. I promise. He's a freshman walk on, but he's actually playing pretty well." He's like, "Hey, look." It's like I actually watched a couple of y'all's games today or whatever, and he said, "I love that guy. Like, I think he's awesome, and I'm really nervous that in like 2 or 3 years we're gonna be looking at him and saying, oh my gosh, like how did we let them get him as a walk on?" And it was funny because he also shed some perspective. We were talking about how is this kid a walk on? Like, why did he walk on? We have open scholarships. He made a really good point. And this is just for some clarity for you guys and any fans who might be interested. I didn't think about it this way. He said, think of it from a business perspective, right? Why pay for something you don't have to pay for? If you if if you can get the kid to come to NKU as a walk on, get him to come as a walk on. Why give him a scholarship? You don't have to. If that's not a selling point, if that's not a deal breaker, and he's willing to come because maybe he doesn't have the offers he wants or whatever, take him as a walk on. Keep that leverage. And so I found that a really interesting comment from him. And but back to his comment about Hoopman's development, like I don't know, man. I could see it going either way. I'm not trying to put too much pressure on a walk on, but like I personally think that I'm kind of in his camp. I think we are going to look back and say, dude, we got that guy as a walk on. How is that even possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah, he had kind of an interesting trip to NKU, I guess you could say. I mean, he started off. I think his family's from overseas, if I remember correct, from Europe somewhere. They moved to the U.S. They're living in Evansville. Moves from Evansville to Northern Kentucky to play at Covington Catholic, I think it was. It's almost like all these little moves, and I know it's probably wrong, but it's just kind of an interesting thought. Almost, it seems like these moves led to him coming to NKU somehow. Like he makes this move from one place to another and keeps getting closer and closer and closer to Highland Heights. I don't know. I know it's kind of like a small-minded way of
Wow,
looking at
Larry,
it.
you're trying to make this all about destiny or something. Is that
No,
what you're doing?
it's straight. I mean, he comes from really heavy basketball pedigree. His dad had a nice little pro basketball career in Europe after playing at Evansville himself as I think a power forward or a post man. Son grows up to be 6 inches taller than him, and once he fills out his frame, I mean, the sky's the limit. One way that I kind of judge players is I look at their faces. I know it sounds weird, but during a game, I watch their expressions. I watch how they react to certain things, and I see he gets some really intense looking faces going on that makes me think that he's just really ready to get in there and get dirty. I just don't think he's got the frame yet to do what he wants to do. But now that he's on a Division I program, if they can put a little bit of meat on his frame, he's got a lot of skill. He's got a lot of skill for a walk on for a walk on, because I don't know. I have a hard time looking at him as a walk on. I really do. But
Yeah,
it is
same.
what it is.
Do you guys think
I think
I want to throw something out there? Is that all right? Do you guys think we see him against Wright State?
I think just out of necessity we do. I think you're gonna, and I hope I'm
As a part
wrong.
of the game plan, or as a part of just
I
rotation
don't
to get
think
out
it's
there?
as part of the game plan. I think it's as, at least my point of view is that I think it's out of necessity. I think in that game we go with our horses, and just because of the lull of averages, we're going to get guys in foul trouble. With the going up against the likes of Love and the others there, that we're going to need him. And I never like to refer to a player as good use of 5 fouls, but that might be a situation where we have a good use of 5 fouls. But to Larry's point, I was fortunate enough to watch him play a handful of times, his senior year, in high school. And I agree wholeheartedly with Larry. I think his athleticism is definitely there. He is very quick off the floor in terms of being a shot blocker, just with his sheer length and just how he anticipates the shot and the release from a shooter. And from, I think, we'll eventually see that as he gets more comfortable in his role. And, on top of that, he has got a very, very nice 5 to 10 foot jump shot that is it's just sweet to see. And you wouldn't expect it out of someone with his height. His touch is very nice. And, I think he surprised a lot of people, at least on the high school level, being able to do that. I think they were more inclined to guard him, as a turnaround, little bank shot there, right there in the lane. But there were many times where he got pushed away from the basket. He was fed the ball and was hitting a nice 5 to 10 foot jumper. So, I'm excited. I think obviously more weight on his frame. I think, working with him, with footwork and different things like that are only going to make him better. I think, let's be honest, I think we thought much the same way when Chris Vogt came in his freshman year. You know, we really didn't expect a lot. The games that he did get in, we were kind of like, oh gosh, what's going on here? But to his credit, he worked hard. The following season really started to come on a much more stronger than he had been. And I'm hoping that's the case with Noah as well. So, time will tell. But I'm happy with what I've been able to see from him so far.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, I don't know. That's it. That's pretty much all I got. Mike, Larry, you guys got anything to add?
Not really. It's just one last thought on, because I'm really, now you've got me thinking about Wright State, and I'm thinking about Love. I'm thinking about Grant Basili. I don't know that Noah Hoopman is the answer to trying to nullify whatever advantage they have with big men. But I mean, Hoopman led the entire country in block shots his junior year in high school. There's something behind that. I mean, there's a lot of good high school basketball players in this country, and he was the best at blocking shots. I would like to see him as part of the game plan. I would love to see him and Adrian Nelson on the court at the same time and just see how many shots they can alter because, Wright State has a lot of firepower. They average 10 more points a game than we do, and they're really putting hurting on teams. So
how would you run that, Larry? Would you, if you have, I'm not like doubting that decision. I'm just saying, like, if you were to run Hoopman and Nelson on the court at the same time, I guess you'd go Langdon, Warwick, Faulkner, and then sort of do like maybe a high-low look, or, you just run more like a 3-out, 2-in kind of thing. And then
exactly. Yeah. Okay. If you're running a 2-3 zone or a, I don't know, not maybe a 1-2-1, but maybe more like a 2-3 zone, because we're probably going to see a 2-3 zone against Wright State. I mean, would you agree with that, or what do you think we're going to do?
I don't know. I mean, well, first of all, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves since we play Green Bay this coming weekend, but I think let's be real though. It's only natural to look ahead to our impending doom. But I don't see, I actually kind of disagree, Larry. I don't know if I see any reason, if I'm Wright State, why would I 2-3 zone NKU? Like, am I really that scared of individual matchups one-on-one? I'm not. I mean, am I scared? Again, if I'm Wright State, do I respect Marquez Warwick? Yeah, but am I scared of a freshman? No. Am I that scared that I can't take Trayvon Faulkner one-on-one? We don't have size that they need to mitigate.
We'll be running the 2-3 is what I'm saying. I think we'll.
Oh well, yeah. Of course,
yeah.
That's Horn's philosophy. We're gonna run our matchup zone. That's here to stay. I mean, we'll come out and press them every now and then, maybe off of makes and stuff like that, which we have actually. If you guys have noticed, we've been mixing that man press.
Yep.
It's more like fresh. Do what?
Yeah. I really like that press.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy. It's definitely not designed to, get turnovers. It's more a change of pace, different look. token pressure to sort of, I mean, basically it's so they can't walk the ball up the court.
Right.
And I like that. I don't think we need to run it all the time, especially when Marquez works playing 35 minutes a game, in back-to-backs. But I don't know. I think I mean, obviously we're going to run the matchup against Wright State. That's what it's going to be. The emphasis is going to be on guards pressuring the ball. To be honest, defensively, yeah, it could make sense having Nelson, and it should. I mean, really, I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be a part of the conversation. I would almost consider, at some point, I would almost like to see Nelson, Bam, and Hoopman all on the court
Love
together,
that.
and try to get really get some length out there.
Right.
Maybe rotate Langdon out, and let Warwick and Trayvon run the offense. I mean, I don't know what that looks like. I don't want to I don't even know if that's a possibility, but Warwick was a point guard in high school. Who knows? I mean, I would love to see us just, this is me personally. I don't care if we lose to Wright State by 40 twice. I just want to see different stuff. I don't want to see us go in there and get our ass whooped and not deviate at all. I'm not the kind of person who's like, let's change up the game plan. I believe that Darren Horn is coming into this job at NKU saying, we're going to run things this way. We're going to establish, it's like what they say in football. If you're a coach, do you change up your game plan based on the matchup, or do you go in and you play your game? Do you control the ball? Do you establish the run? That's kind of how Darren Horn is. He's like, no, I'm not going to adjust based on what they're doing. We're going to do what we're doing, what we do better. And that's going to make it to where we win, basically. And so I don't necessarily need to see him adjust every single game or whatever. Every time another team has a 5-point run, we have to come out in a different defense. I don't need all that. I would, however, against Wright State, the best team in the league, probably love to see us switch up our looks, and that includes throwing out a ton of length at them. But I'm curious what you guys think about that.
That's exactly what I want to see. I want to limit their second chance shots. And if that, or the second chance points, if that means having more length on the court to nullify that, then let's see what happens.
For sure. Mike, you got any last thoughts or anything?
No, I'm pretty much along the same lines. I think I said this last year, even the year before. I think you set yourself up defensively where you shut down everybody else, and if it means Loudon Love scores 45 points on his own, you let him have those 45, but you limit what everybody else is doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because looking at the personnel that we've got, and it's not discounting anybody. I love everybody that we've got. Let's be honest, Love is a load in itself. And, to be able to defend that, I think we saw in years past, when Drew was on him and just how Drew would get worn down. I mean, anybody in their right mind is going to get worn down trying to keep that size out of the middle. And so I think if we switch it up to where we're able to, shut down or limit the other scores for them and, let him have his however many and take our chances that way, I'd feel much better doing it that way than, maybe doing it any other way. But it's definitely going to be an all hands on deck type of situation. We're going to need everybody to be just ultimately at the top of their game for those two back-to-backs. And, I would love a split. I would certainly take a split and be ecstatic with it heading into the tournament. I agree, with the original question. I think it is something that we can't go with what we've been doing so far this season. I think we're going to have to throw something different at them to catch them off guard.
Yeah, real quick on that, to your point, Mike, the first game against them last year when we lost by 32, Loudon Love had 16. Doesn't in there. Cole Gentry, 11. Billy Wampler, 19. Yeah. Tanner Holden, 20. Jalen Hall, 15. Trey Calvin off the bench, 12. That team went nuts, and we let them do it to us. We let them get the ball in the middle. Yeah. We didn't pressure the guards. When we did collapse in the middle, they kicked it to the wing, and they just busted us for 12 3-pointers that game. The second time we played them, when it was a 2-point game, we lost at home. if you guys remember, Loudon Love scored like the first 16 to their first 17 points, something like that.
Yep.
He ended up with only 20
Mhm.
to end the game. But I mean, it was a much more tame game from everyone else. You had only 6 bench points. Gentry had 12, Wampler had 11, and no one else scored in double figures. So to your point, sure, if Loudon Love's going to come out and kill us, Loudon Love's going to come out and kill us. Don't let them kill us on the boards, right? And don't let everyone else kill us. So
Right.
I'm kind of with you. The only problem is that game, Silas Hideki played a hell of a game, stopping Loudon Love from scoring in the second half primarily, and we don't have that this year. So
Right.
it'll be very interesting to see. In fact, Silas Hideki had the best box plus minus of all the starters that game for NKU. So there's a stat for you. That's the first time you'll ever hear that. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. I don't know if you guys have any closing thoughts or any final things to say. For me, it's just another good day to be a Norse fan, and I'm ready to see what we can do against Green Bay this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to take 2 more from Green Bay, extend this thing to 8 games straight, and see what we got last weekend of the season against Wright State.
Yep.
That's what I'm hoping. Take that confidence into Wright State and see what we can do.
Yeah, a quick note of interest for people is one, and this is the last what I'll close with is this isn't a sleeper series against Green Bay. Not to say that like I'm not saying that in the sense that like, oh, watch out, they can beat you. It's just there's another interesting storyline to pay attention to other than the wins and losses. Green Bay's got a new coach, as we heard on the coaches show, but as you probably already knew as well. Bo Ryan from Wisconsin, it's his son. They have completely U-turned on their philosophy. I just talked about it with Jim Sarro a few hours ago before listening to the coaches show even, but they went from being one of the most fast-paced teams in the league in the whole nation last year to now they're one of the most slow-paced teams in the league, or in the nation. I mean, Green Bay, that is. And then they also are very undersized this year, but apparently they have a couple guys who are really coming on strong as offensive rebounders. Like they have really picked it up. So make sure if you guys, Michael and Larry, but then everyone else watching, check out the Matchup Zone episode I did with Jim Sarro. He gives a full breakdown on kind of what to expect out of them. But the last thing is he mentioned they're a very, very young team with a brand new head coach. And I thought that was so interesting because I see this coming series this weekend, not so much from a seeding this year perspective, or like, I don't see it with the finality of like this year, but I actually see this series as being so big for both programs in momentum for program direction, right? Like we're both in very similar positions with young teams, newer coaching staffs and coaches trying to build a culture and appeal to recruits and kind of send a message to the league. If we go in and sweep Green Bay, that kind of knocks them off their trajectory just a little bit, and it really helps us continue to build our trajectory towards any future success we're going to have. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of storyline for people to pay attention to. So that's it for me, guys. Appreciate you two joining, staying on. It's 10:30 at night on a Monday. I'm sure everyone's going to have a fun Tuesday tomorrow. Hopefully a snow day for some of you guys, but that's it for us. You can check us out on YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook. Just search Norse Report. You'll find us. And thanks again. See you guys next week.